Warning, Zeig's story is very important to Tier Rank Saga, and thus is a major spoiler for the game. If you care about spoilers for a 20-year-old Japanese-only PS1 game, click away now. Also, Zeig's more accurately translated name would be Zeke, not Zeig. But if I kept saying Zeke, you'd think I'm talking about Zeke. But I'm not talking about Zeke, I'm talking about Zeke. So to make it clear that I'm talking about Zeke, I won't be calling him Zeke, I'll be calling him Zeig, so as not to get him mixed up with the aforementioned Zeke. How do you make a cult of Satan followers hell-bent on world destruction sympathetic? It's not a question I ever thought I'd be asking. Because, it sounds completely impossible given everything about that sentence, but goddamn if Kaga doesn't try. In Yggdrasil, there were moments where you actually kind of felt a little sad for the Lopter cult, in spite of all the oppression and child killing they did. But in my opinion, Kaga did that much better in Tier Rank Saga, with the Zoans and the Gurxel cult, making even the main villain Gwen Chaos someone you felt sorry for in the end. And today, we'll be looking at the character who helps the entire cult and Zoan people feel understandable in spite of their evil deeds, the Dark Knight Zeig. Since the people in my audience who have played Tier Rank Saga are few, I should probably give a little bit of a backstory about the Gurxel cult. A long time ago, on Tier Rank Saga's main continent of Liberia, the native Zoan tribe were faced with immigrants from the continent of Yggdrasil. However, Kaga got sued, so instead of coming from Yggdrasil, they came from Yugd. Jugged? Ugged? There are more ways to pronounce that word than there are letters in it. Anyway, the Zoans got their ass kicked by the Yugd people, and out of desperation, their leader Calbazan went on a journey to find his ancient god to gain the strength to beat the invaders. He found a dragon he thought was his god Gurxel, and drank his gamer-fueled dragon blood voltage, and renamed himself after the god Gurxel, laying waste to the entire continent and becoming a ruling tyrannical god of the land. He was eventually defeated by a dude named Carluan, who had the power of friendship and a god-blessed sword he found, and Gurxel's reign of terror was ended. After the fact, though, Zoans were incredibly abused and hated by the now successful conquerors of Yugd, and widespread oppression of the Zoan people ensued. About 1,000 years later, some dickbag named Gwen Chaos is ruling over a cult of Zoans dedicated to the revival of Gurxel, and now we can finally talk about how Zeig falls into all of this. Zeig first appears at Chapter 5, working with a cult to attack a shrine of mages that stand as a threat to Gurxel's revival. During the fight, he actually recruits himself. He will seek out the main Lord Runin and initiate peace talks. He says that he was once a knight of the far-off destroyed kingdom called Barge, and was only fighting to protect his family from the cult. But in spite of his family's safety, he cannot bring himself to continue doing the horrible acts the cult are doing to the world. And so, Zeig deserts the cult, siding with Runin and the good guys in order to save the world from their evil clutches. And that sounds all well and good, but you gotta admit, a cult is just suddenly deciding, I want to be a good guy now, out of nowhere is kinda suspicious. Kate, a knight fighting alongside Runin, casts doubt over Zeig, thinking his story to be a fabrication. The timing of it is suspect enough, but Zeig also claims to be a knight of Barge, and while he was not lying when he said Barge was the destroyed kingdom, he's not the only man of Barge in Runin's army. Raffin is actually a knight from the Fallen Kingdom as well, and he remarked that he has never seen or heard of Zeig before. Those two factors combined cause Kate to claim Zeig is a liar. Maybe he's a spy sent in by the cult to shadow their movements. And when faced with these accusations, Zeig decides to prove the validity of his story by taking his clothes off. On his back are a bunch of horrid scars and lashings he says were given to him when he was working as a slave to the cult in their native Zoan lands. Of course, the game doesn't have a CG or anything for this. Strategy RPGs didn't know how to draw men's naked backs until Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. He says the cult were terrible, lashing out and killing slaves of men, women, and children all alike. Zeig refused to stand back and watch children die, so he tried to stand up for them and protect them. And his reward for his heroics were beatings and scars that still remain on his body decades after they happened. But Zeig's will was too strong to break from just a beating, so they turned their attention to his family instead. Unable to see his family suffer, he agreed to be a warrior for the cult in exchange for their safety. And he was, until he could stand being a villain no longer and defected. Well, Kate must really have a kink for a man with some battle scars, because she immediately warms up to him after this. The two actually start to hit it off really well, as they're both very serious people without much of a sense of humor. In a scene shortly after Zeig joins, the army is celebrating their victories in a banquet, and Kate comes up to him to spend some time with him. He attempts to shoo her away, saying that his life has been hell and he has no fun stories to share with her. She remarks that she doesn't really care about that, and would love to just sit with him in silence, and to that Zeig offers no further objections. And before we jump into more story stuff, I gotta say, as a unit, Zeig is pretty much the best in the entire game. He has a great join time, is pre-promoted in a game where that really doesn't hamper a unit's XP gain, and he has fucking Paragon. Combine this with really good growth rates, especially for a game when every unit has growth rates like Jagan, and you've got a 10 out of 10 unit players are going to use. And because of this, the player also latches onto Zeig like Kate does, loving him because of his great contributions to the army. And because the player latches onto him, they'll want to believe in him like Kate does. And that, doesn't go so well. Zeig's next scene doesn't actually have him in it, as he's hiding away at another banquet, not wanting to be out and about and mingling with people. Norton, one of Kate's friends and fellow knights, comes to her expressing concern over her little fling with Zeig. He mirrors Kate's doubts from before, calling in the dubious circumstances behind Zeig's enrollment in the army. Norton believes Kate is just being fooled by a man with a pretty face, and he gets a long lecture from Kate in response, saying how she and Norton have been well off in their lives, and can't understand the plight of people who have suffered all the time like Zeig has. This scene helps establish Zeig as a divisive figure. Not everybody in the army is suddenly on his side, which in my opinion is a realistic scene for when an enemy just suddenly defects. However, as tragic as it may be, it turns out that Kate should have trusted her initial doubts, as Zeig's true allegiance is made clear. A little over halfway through the game, Zeig's sister Carla, a very high-ranking witch at the Gerxel cult, comes to him and tells him to return to the cult's forces. She remarks that she came by because Zeig suddenly stopped sending reports to the cult about Runin and the army's actions. It's revealed that he really was a spy sent in all along. He had been reporting Runin's movements back to Gwen Chaos from the very start. However, no one in the army actually realizes this. To them, Zeig just suddenly vanishes without a trace. This sets up dramatic irony later on, where Kate still believes in Zeig, but the player knows he's just been a liar all along. Hey, are you sad that Zeig let you down? Are you upset that you had faith in someone only to have it crushed? Well, I know someone who will never let you down. Wait. There we go. FEMS Paint will never let you down, and his Patreon is for you. For as little as $3 a month, you can get access to benefits like getting early access to his videos, and for a little bit more money, you can even vote on polls to decide future videos on the channel. Right now, it's a battle for Fodlin, and it looks like Mercedes has a lead, but there's still a lot of time in the poll if you wanna give me some money. Those patrons include the likes of Atomic X160, follow Penta the North Star on Twitch, subscribe to Great Riek, Green Brigand, Hell on Heelys, Hollow, Kieran Morin, Lightning Bolt, Me Do a Gamer, Memi, Nember, Nevrix the Fallen Shield Guy, Ranger Man Sam, Ryan Walter, Space1255, Steph D, Tato, Anti-Ginger, Brentendo11, Drew Hack, and Michael Hamilton. Thanks for your continued support, and here's hoping we'll be together forever. Get out of here, Rick Astley, get me demonetized! After Zeig leaves the army, the player sees him a few times more, and in them, he seems to be a good guy, in spite of the betrayal. He shames a greedy tyrant named Lenzenheimer, condemning him to die for Zeig and his men to escape, and later on, he gets into an argument with a Gerxel cultist about the men under Zeig's command. The cult sees them as nothing more than cannon fodder, sacrifices unfit to bear witness to Gertrude's revival. Zeig, however, has faith in them. To him, they are people who deserve to persist in the world of their new god. These scenes help hammer in that Zeig is not a bad man at heart, and perhaps he really is being manipulated by his sister or something else to act on the wrong side. But alas and alack, it is not so. Zeig's true loyalty lies in the cult to the very end. In a battle with Holmes, Zeig is defeated and captured, with the hope that they can get some answers out of him about all the bullshit that's been going on in the world. However, he is rescued by Kate, who goes behind Holmes's back to free him, as she thinks he's being manipulated into serving the cult. Unfortunately, Zeig twists a dagger into her heart, and lets her get taken away by the cult's sorcerers, though it's worth noting he did try to convince her to join the cult with him before she left. This is the final blow. At this point, it's clear Zeig will not be rejoining the player's side, and it all comes down to the final battle with him, as he is the penultimate boss of the entire game. And it's at this point we finally learn Zeig's true sad anime backstory. See, his story about being a slave in Gertrude camps and watching his family get beaten and killed, that was a lie. Kind of. He was a normal boy growing up in a big family. His parents were well off, and he was the runt of a litter of 5 kids, the lone boy among 4 older sisters. When he was 3 years old, however, a mob of Revens, descendants of the settlers of Udral, came and attacked his family, as his mother was descended from the Zoans. Even though they had no ties to the cult, his parents and 3 of his 4 elder sisters were burned alive at the stake as heretics. He and his sister were enslaved instead, as they were only children, but when Carla grew of age, she was set to be executed as well, though she was saved by the Gertrude cult's leader Gwen Chaos, due to her Zoan heritage. For the next 25 years, Zeig was forced into a prison camp by the people, enduring beatings and torture his whole life. That was where the scars on his back came from. So the story he told Kate wasn't a complete lie, he just changed who did the whipping. 3 years prior to the game's beginning, his sister Carla came to save him, as she was now a full-fledged witch and powerful figure in the cult. And so, Zeig joined the cult's warriors, fueled by a mixture of his gratitude that the cult had saved him, and in part his rage that the Revens killed his family and enslaved him. And that's the ironic part. His family had no desire to be wicked, but because they were attacked for being so, Zeig and Carla became 2 of the cult's most powerful allies. And yet, despite all of that, despite the years of torture and abuse, Zeig's heart was still conflicted. He knew that people like Kate and Runin did him no harm. He knows their innocence being caught up in an act of vengeance where they committed no crime. But he also can't let go of his rage, the pain he felt in those decades of enslavement and torture. He's too kind to be an evil cultist, and too angry to give it all up and join the right cause. Despite a pep talk from his sister, when he takes his lance to fight against Runin, he does so without any real feelings of pride or honor. In a sense, he's hollow. And ultimately, that's how Zeig dies. A man torn between 2 causes and able to commit himself to neither. And through Zeig's painful existence and meaningless death, we can get a grasp as to why the cult is the way that it is, and why people would follow it. It's one thing for the game to just say, Zoans got persecuted so they sided with Satan, but by giving an example like Zeig, the message is driven further home. Fire Emblem's had traces of this with ex-cultists in FE5 like Salem and Sarah, but they didn't really want to be in the cult anymore at all. Zeig was someone that stayed on the dark road, and through his pain, we have a character that's super tragic, memorable, and strengthens the story of Tier Rank Saga as a whole. Zeig might have chosen the wrong path in the end, but there was always a sliver of hope in the man known as the Sorrowful Knight. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end of a Tier Rank Saga character analysis. Really, I was really happy to do this, and I don't care if not that many people cared about it. As always, I would like to thank the Green Brigand for his help looking over the script, as we're both Tier Rank Saga fans, and he was actually really excited that I picked a character from it. Before you click away, please like the video, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the Patreon, and play Tearing Saga. Like, you've gotten this far. If you haven't played it yet, go fucking play it. Until next time.
Change the world. My final message.